Hello, dear listeners. I'm coming to you with a truly special update. As a former journalist, this feels very news like. I kind of wish I had some news noises in the background, but I know better than to bury the lead. So I'm here to share that I am having a baby. If you haven't heard, this is a long time dream I've had, and it is a really special moment for me and my husband, Michael. So, we're making a few adjustments around here on the School of Self Worth to give me the time and space for maternity leave. So, we will be moving to a schedule with a new episode for you once every 2 weeks. So, you're going to still get incredible interviews with powerful, inspiring Asian American leaders. I mean, these are some of the best interviews I think we've ever had on the show. And you are also still going to get new mini episodes from me as well. And you'll just be getting them a little bit more spaced out than usual. So I am so grateful to be able to have a life where this is even possible for me to take maternity leave, to be supported by all of you and by my team, for me to be able to do this. And it truly is the dream I've always had, to be able to balance my life, my personal life, the people that I love, with the work that I am so passionate about. And I really feel like I cannot wait till I come back, because I know I'm going to have so much to share with all of you. But how do you balance a full, ambitious, purposeful life with all of the dreams that you have, including having a family? So I am so grateful to you, my dear, brilliant listeners, for being part of this journey. I know that I will have so much to share with you when I am back. So please stay tuned. We have such remarkable episodes here for you. Today's episode is such a special one, and I cannot wait for you to hear from our guest, Ambika Singh. So, Ambika is the CEO and founder of Armoire, a clothing rental company that she founded nearly a decade ago. Ambika is seriously so smart and so thoughtful about the entrepreneurial journey. She's also a mom of two, and she has lived the waves of how to stay true to your vision while running a growing company. I learned so much from what she shared about how she stays on track for herself. And I really love the conversation because we get so much into the details around what it takes to have a company for this long, to really keep running it, and to really stay true to yourself in all of it. So, before we get started, if you are a high achieving Asian American corporate leader who wants to feel valued and visible so that you nail the next promotion cycle, DM me visible at Nicole Song on Instagram. I've got a bunch more details over there for you. Okay, friends, let's dig into this extraordinary conversation with Ambika Singh. Ambika, it's so good to have you here on the School of Self-Worth. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to get the chance to talk to you.
Well, it's so fun. I'm going to take you way back because I don't know if you remember this, but years ago, so we both went to Dartmouth, and years ago they asked us to present, and I laugh looking back that they asked me to present at this like entrepreneur forum because I was in no way an entrepreneur back in the day. I was like teaching yoga and writing books. But I remember when you were there and you were presenting, and you had actually literally, I think, just started Armoire. Maybe it was like a year in.
Yeah.
But I just remember being really impressed by everything you were doing because you were like getting funding. And this was before rentals were even a thing. But I don't know if you remember that conversation. It was like in an Amazon building in downtown Seattle.
I do, like, very vaguely, and I will correct the record. You are very much an entrepreneur, and like it's all the same kind of, especially those early days challenges. Like, how do I take this idea and turn it into something?
Yeah, well, I would love to start with that because I feel like, for me, definitely the entrepreneurial journey has been a very big self-worth journey. And I'm curious for you because, you went to business school and you kind of went it more. I remember at that conversation, there was a lot of people in tech, right? And so they were really looking for funding, and it was like a different kind of that approach to entrepreneurship. But I'm curious for you, like, where does that even start? I mean, I'm sure it started actually before that point for you to start to say, hey, like, I am the person who's going to start this new thing, and I'm going to go ask a bunch of dudes in Silicon Valley, I'm assuming is what you did for money to have this happen. So would you mind starting, like, where did you start to feel this? Have you always been entrepreneurial? Like, where did this all start for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and sort of I love the kind of like next generation's focus on intentionality, because I think I had very little of that. I'll tell you
Yeah.
what that means. I think to your point, like I was very fortunate to grow up in a really entrepreneurial household. My dad has been a multi-time CEO, and my mom is very entrepreneurial in her own right. And then in middle school, actually, I went to this, in Washington, we have choice schools, which like in the rest of the country might be similar to something that looks like a magnet school or a charter school, but they're essentially publicly funded, but run very entrepreneurially. And so I was really lucky to be the first class to graduate out of one that now has like really got a great reputation and persisted and all that stuff. So I was about 11 or 12 at that point, and the chart or the call to the families that were joining was that the creation of this thing was going to be 1/3 teachers, 1/3 parents, and 1/3 students. And so there was a lot of kind of empowerment at, I guess, at an early age for me between those two um, influences, my school and my family, of like, you can build things, and especially if you don't like things, you can change things, but it's on you to figure out how to do that. So I think I had that in my background. I was, again, like a fast forward, very fortunate to go to Dartmouth, and got a lot of exposure to people, who had run interesting businesses, and who were thinking about things in a different way. But I didn't come out of undergrad kind of thinking or even fancying myself an entrepreneur. I went to work at Microsoft, as we do in Seattle. Even there, I ended up probably like gravitating towards a job which put me in front of student entrepreneurs who I was really inspired by. I guess one other kind of like part of the building blocks at Dartmouth, I wrote a thesis about microfinance, and I spent a good amount of time in India with mostly women who were running these businesses that they had taken microloans for. And I got to see the transformational power. So I think it was really lots of different places where I learned about entrepreneurship, and started to kind of like build my own conviction. I did go to business school thinking that I would like to start something. I didn't have an idea of what it was. And I even, there were lots of people who I think lovingly tried to dissuade me from going to business school, in the under the kind of context of the fact that like women very often tend to over credential themselves. You've heard this of like, men will apply to a job with 40% of the credentials, women will apply at 110%. So people lovingly said, like, if what you really want to do is start a business, you really need this like
Mm.
academic kind of like stamp on your way. I think for me, it was really valuable because it gave me time to kind of like really focus. I think it would have been hard for me to create that time for myself. And so over 2 years at Sloan, I tried all kinds of different ideas, everything from working on elderly loneliness to I had an idea about a shoe company that would have two different size shoes, because a lot of people have two different size feet. So they were really like all over the place ideas. But this one, the idea of having a rented closet really stuck, I think, for me personally, and for the community around me. It felt important from and still does to me, from a lasting legacy perspective. The fashion industry is really tough on the planet. And
Mm.
there's not a lot of, I think, cognizance about that at the consumer level. That really, it's like, you can consume less as a consumer, and that is great. But we've got to work it back into the supply chain, because we're basically building an industry that says it is free to throw things away. And so we might as well overproduce kind of to a massive scale. We're probably overproducing at about like 30 to 40% annually. And then these clothes never go away. So you can just imagine, like, you've probably heard this, but we can dress the whole planet over for, 50 generations coming if we never make another piece of clothing. So
I had not heard that. So that's crazy. That is actually really crazy. Yeah.
we've got
So
too much stuff.
yeah, oh, we definitely do, for sure.
So it felt really important to me from that perspective. I was deep in kind of, I would say, the part of my career that was kind of maybe most painful on the gender inequality, in terms of like what was expected of me professionally, and then what was expected of me from my appearances perspective that went into
Mhm.
my professional. So I was at peak frustration with that part of it. So it really felt useful and important to me to figure out this for professional women. And then lastly, I realized that like it was really fun for me. I had never had a chance to work with female consumers. I was looking at women who very much like represented me, working women who had real problems. And I thought, like, man, if I could do something important here that would help their lives, like this, with these like three pillars behind me, will feel like really heavy. So I guess like my entrepreneurial journey started more from there. And that's what I mean
Mhm.
about intentional and not intentional. The stuff that came after it, I was like, oh no, I never signed up to spend 100 hours of my life pitching dudes who like had no idea what I was talking about.
Well, especially when you started, I mean, I feel like now rental is like more common. Like people, there's multiple companies. I know many people who rent, but I remember like when I met you, I mean, I don't think I knew anybody, but maybe because it wasn't even available back then.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's still the oldest version, at least in America, is tux rental. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
yeah, that version has existed for a long time. There was if you remember the first Sex in the City movie, so now we're probably like probably 2000s, I'm thinking.
Mhm.
There was a little kind of highlight of a bag rental company. So there was a
Oh.
one of the earliest versions of this was a bag rental company that actually was based in Seattle.
Oh, wow.
Bag
Cool.
borrow and steal.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that. I remember that name.
Yeah.
I never borrowed from them, but yeah, I remember that.
Hopefully you didn't steal from them either.
No, I hope not. So,
It was like an interesting name in that way because
yeah, totally, right?
I
You're like,
did get
"Please
to
don't steal our stuff."
right. I
Yeah.
got to know some members of the team later. They were all like very helpful trying to help me get started, but
Yeah.
that it was a part of the name that they definitely regretted.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Not want that. Um, so yeah, there weren't many people doing it, basically, to
Mhm.
answer your question. And so I thought, coming from tech, I guess I didn't explain this part. I then had gone to Microsoft. I worked at two different web startups, one in the travel industry and one in the dog boarding industry, actually. And so my lens was like, let's find a place with white space. It didn't
Mhm.
occur to me that white space has real challenges that the spreadsheet doesn't tell you about. The spreadsheet tells you if your business is going to go like this because there's no other competitor. So hockey stick is going to be amazing. But I
But nobody knows what it is.
nobody knows what it is.
Right, I was
Nobody's
thinking
sure
that.
if they want to do it. So
Yeah, so a lot of your work was, like, having to generate that. I mean, would you say, like, going back to the self-worth piece, like, did it occur to you as, like, a worthy thing, or you were just kind of like, "I've got an idea and I'm just gonna go for it," at that time, and then the challenges came up, and then you had to kind of, like, keep coming back to yourself through all of that because 'cause it's been many years now.
yeah, I mean, I think kind of a combination of both. Like the
Mhm.
ultimate mission has always felt really important to me, and so I think I use that as like a mind trick on myself when I'm not feeling super confident about me or like even about the business or whatever. The mission of it feels so important that it gives me confidence, strength, grit. Um, but yeah, I certainly I didn't have a good sense for like how hard this was going to be.
Mhm. And what would you say for you, because you again, it's just I mean, I think entrepreneurship, I always say this to my clients who I coach in building their own businesses, is that it's like the biggest personal journey and personal growth journey you'll ever go on because you have to confront yourself daily, multiple times, hundreds of times a day sometimes to
Hmm.
stay true to it. And there's no boss because you are the boss,
Hmm.
right? And so you have to just look at yourself like there's nobody else you could say, "Oh, that's you made that decision, and so now I have to deal with it." You're like, "Nope, I make all the decisions, so I have to really live with what that's like." And like, where would you say you would say like your biggest challenges, and then what did you find out about yourself in going through those?
I think my biggest challenge and probably also my biggest strength is that I am I'm pretty gritty. Like
Mm,
it's it's probably a combination of like have feeling like I have something to prove and feeling like I like winning and I'm a competitive person, all that stuff. But the place where I certainly have not made piece, so I think I'm still on this journey, is that like I'm pretty tough on myself.
Mm.
At the end of the every day, it's more about like what more could I do. I tend to like have a lot of like anxiety at like whatever the proposed end of my day is. And to your point, nobody really ends your day except for
Mhm.
you, because there's no one telling you it's time to go home. So like
Yeah.
the bleeding into the evening nights has been tough. And it's on the flip side, like I feel like the reason it's a strength for me is because like I am pretty driven, and I think I can do more, and I think problems can be solved, and those things like drive me. But I think the place where I need to figure out how to give myself peace is like I would like to have this feeling at the end of the day, like, Bika, you did a great job today.
Mm.
You're all done now, and you did good. Here's a gold star. I almost never give myself that end of the day feedback.
I was thinking you actually need like a chart where you could give yourself a gold star every day. That would be fun.
I
You're like,
really, yeah,
yeah, gold star for today.
yep.
Yep.
And one thing that has helped me is that I have these little children now who I
Mhm.
think I was like very afraid of um, how I was going to balance these things, and knowing that I'm like so obsessed with my company, I was like, man, is there room for me to scale to these other things that people appear to be obsessed with once they get them? Um, And I think that has been like actually really good for me, because it does give me an end to the day, first of all, that I care about more than my end of the day.
Mhm.
I want to see them in the evening and like be present, and all of those kinds of things. They're still very little, but they're starting to be proud of me. And
Mm.
like maybe I won't ever be able to like properly do that for myself, but maybe they will.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, what would you say? Because I feel like that's a big thing for a lot of the women who listen, and they're like very high achievers. They're trying to do so many things. Like, how do you figure out? And you know, there's no answer in terms of balance, but like, what are the ways that have worked for you to figure out how to like, even probably taking maternity leave while running your own company was probably scary.
yeah, and it's interesting, like, you can even see the way I did it the first time versus the way I did it the second time. I clearly learned something along the way. The
Yeah.
first time, nobody forced me to go back to work, but I pretty much went back to work, like, immediately. First of all,
Mm.
and I didn't realize this, but, like, people had tried to tell me this, it was much more about, like, um feeling lost in parenthood than
Mm.
it was like about being so stressed that my company was going to burn down. I guess like a real thing that I should say is that I was also very fortunate that the company was already, I think, like 7 years old by the time, 6 or 7 years old by the time Kason was born. So it's a really different situation in the early years. I don't know that practically, I don't know
Mm.
that I could have just like walked away from it. Um, but in the later years, I could. I've got this like amazing leadership team, and they do their jobs 100% better than I could do their jobs. So I know that. So that gives me a lot of confidence. There are still things that I think I do better than others, and like I know I'll push the company forward by doing that. But they're kind of like optional. They're extra. Like there are now people that like make sure that we get the packages out the door, that we talk to our customers every day, that we so on a running a business perspective, like I'm not in that, and that gave me huge latitude. But still, I went back to work very early after Kason was born, because I was pretty much like, this is what I do, and that thing over there is not what I do.
That part is scary and hard, and so I'm not
Don't know
good
how
at
to do that thing.
it.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I had this like probably less than ideal maternity leave the first time. So the second time, I actually left the country. Um,
Oh, wow.
we Airbnb'd our house, and we went to Australia. It was winter
Mhm.
in Seattle, which also was same thing the first time around. A very negative experience for a sun seeker like me. I was trapped inside with a screaming baby. So, baby number two, we Airbnb'd the house, which is also, this is everything in my life is like a little over the top. I had a baby. 2 weeks later, we packed up our entire house. 2 weeks after that, we moved to Australia. But it was great for me because I was in the wrong time zone. I
Mm.
really had to let go. The team did amazing. We had an incredible quarter. And I got to spend some time with my kids, and it was pretty great.
That's awesome. I like how you're like, the way I'm gonna solve this problem is just, like, leave the country. 'Cause this is easier than staying. Because if you're here, you'd still be in your routines, and you'd wanna check your emails and, like, do all the stuff, right?
I
But
mean, for a non-entrepreneur, I think they thought it was an insane, but, like, all my entrepreneur friends were like, "Oh, yeah, do that. You have to do that." It's like, if you're not gonna do that, why are you even pretending to take leave?
Right. You're like, you're just gonna work from home instead
Right.
of go to the office, right? Yeah, totally. That's awesome. So then that was effective.
It was really effective. I literally was stuck. I couldn't do anything.
You're like, "I was stuck in Australia, so
Yeah.
I just raised my kids there."
Yeah, it's fine. But you're totally right. I mean, these are the absurd realities that you live in, that or at least that I live in, that, like, my inability to exercise any self-control while requires me to move to the furthest place from Seattle.
I know, you really went polar opposite, right, to go to Australia. That's awesome. I love that. Well, I mean, I think that sometimes too, it's like, well, you have a lot of freedom as an entrepreneur, so you could make a choice like that. Yeah. Well, what
Yeah,
yeah, and then you just did it, and then you're like, "Okay, and then I'll be back when my maternity leave is over."
it was
Good
amazing.
mind. That's awesome. Well, I'm curious now, like, you're so like, how many years now have you had Armoire?
So Armar is 9.5 years old. She will be 10, this June.
Oh my gosh, that's right when this comes out, so this is gonna be 10th anniversary of Armoire. That's amazing. What do you feel like looking back at Ambika 10 years ago,
Wait,
like
sorry, that I'm 1 year off. She will be 10 next year,
10
26.
next year? Oh, okay,
Yes.
so 9, she's 9 this year, but
She's 9
still
this year.
same
Yes.
question still applies.
Yes,
So,
yes.
what would you say, like, to you starting this company 9 years ago? Like, do you think first that she would ever have visualized that it is where it is now?
So, I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs probably say this on your or at least the ones like, I came out of this, this kind of, like, generation of particularly consumer companies that were growth at all costs. We were venture backed. We came out of MIT's accelerator. So, my spreadsheet looked now with my, more experienced eyes, absolutely absurd.
Like,
Um
there's no way you could ever have hit those numbers? No.
No. But yeah, I thought this would be, gigantic. I don't think I
Mm,
had any idea what to do with gigantic or, like, what that meant or but,
right.
then and now, I feel very strongly that, like, we are adding something positive into our members' lives. So, it kinda just felt then and now like, how do we get this into more people's hands and add more kind of yeah, great outcomes for our customers and for the planet. I just didn't have I didn't have a good sense for like how relatively slow it was. And I guess like I hesitate to say slow because I think it's all just like relative to your frame of
Totally.
reference and
Mhm.
what people have told you,
Right.
which I find to be most of it not very true now looking back. Like, actually, you think any of these great companies that you know did not grow to $1 billion overnight. It took them
No.
10, 20, 30, 40 years. And those are like the real time frames, like 5 years. Okay, you do a thing. In
Right.
10 years, you make another milestone. In 15 years, you make another milestone. Whereas, like, I was on this, like, every quarter, we make a new kind of like massive leap. And it
We double every quarter right
Right.
now. Like, yeah, totally.
Does not work that way.
Well, I always find that really interesting about entrepreneurship too, because, I'm in the online space and you're in the online space too, right? But different kinds of businesses. And it is really interesting because I'm 6 years, almost 7 years into business, and it has grown. And like you said, much slower than I think I originally ever thought. And I know so much more about it and I enjoy it too in a way that I probably not like the first couple of years. I thought I was a big mess. I was like, I don't understand this business. I don't know what it's about. And then you really recognize and see that people who have done it, like some people have had exponential years, but that's not every year.
Right,
And, like, I think that's also part of it, like, I see the people I admire and, like, they had 2 exponential years out of 10,
right,
right? It's not like and so then you're just like, "Oh," because it's like you have slow and steady, like, you just keep if you love it and you're passionate about your mission and what you're working on, then that's what would keep you going versus
right,
being like, it has to be massive.
right. And I think, like, from a financing perspective, back to, like, part of your original question, I for me, this is my opinion, right? Like, I actually don't think it's very positive, to raise a bunch of money upfront and, because you don't give yourself a chance to grow in that kind of like slow and steady way.
Yeah.
So I did, I raised a bunch of venture dollars in the beginning. We now have a line of credit. We're probably moving to like a more formal banking relationship. So it's not to say that we haven't been backed by incredible people that have helped us kind of like get this far. It is it's a different way of building a business perhaps than like the way you built yours, which I
Mhm.
assume it doesn't make it any easier or harder or anything like that. It's just different.
Right. Yeah, no, mine is just me, right? It's just been me putting money in and then investing and doing it, and it's different, right? It's just a different kind of business than what you guys are doing. But you also have, like warehouses and huge volume of stuff, right? Like it's a totally different level. Well, I remember when I saw you speak recently, you were talking about how one of the biggest challenges for you in running a business has been going back to ask for money over and every time you do that. And I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more to that. What is it like to, like, even as a woman and a woman of color, going back about fashion too, which probably doesn't have like a ton of VC investment. Like that's probably not the area they play in.
Right.
What, like, how have you seen things shift or how have you shifted as you've done that?
Yeah. So I guess in terms of like how, in the early days, we came out of MIT's accelerator, and so the school backed us with a little bit of money, which took us through probably like the first year, and then I just started to talk to anyone and everyone who would talk to me, um, and Boston, Seattle, like everywhere in between. I learned very quickly that like this wasn't a problem that a lot of, and now speaking in broad generalizations, it wasn't a problem that a lot of men understood. It seemed to be more understandable by women. So I kind of like, I understood pretty early that I was going to have trouble not only being a woman of color as a CEO, but also my business is somewhat like literally like there so many blank faces like, and I still get this question now of like,
Yeah.
but if you find a shirt you like, why don't you just get more of that shirt? Why do you want a different shirt? So it's just
I
like,
was like, that's such a weird question, but I guess that's something a guy would ask.
that's totally what a guy would do, right? So it's like they literally cannot understand why you would want to take this risk. And I've had like kind of more in-depth conversations about them too. They're like, well, you have to get ready and out the door in the morning. Like, why do you want to have something you haven't worn before? It's like, well, it's hard to understand. It's hard to explain that, because it's like,
Like
that's
I
also
could
a
have
rational point of view,
like I could have 15 white shirts and they're all different.
right?
As a
The fun
woman.
of it.
Totally, because it's fun and they all look different.
So I knew it was going to be tough. I was not going to pattern match to who they had seen before, and the business was certainly not going to pattern match to what they'd seen before. So some of the places that I was successful was that there for a time we 50% of the money on our cap table came from women,
Mm,
which is almost like unheard of.
yeah.
And a lot of them were non-professional investors. Many of them started as my customers,
Oh,
um,
cool.
who really wanted the business to survive. And that I've talked about this too, but like my first aha moment on that was like a customer asked me, she was like, "This thing is changing my life. Like, can I like bet on this? Like, can I help you?" And I'm like, "I've got weeks of cash, so like I have a problem." And she was like, "Oh, like what do we do?" And then we kind of like reasoned together that like a thing we might be able to do is that she could become my investor. And then we
Mm,
started to like look into it and like, oh, okay, actually, um, even though I would say that there is effort to try to keep people, regular people out of the investing world, there are inclusions and ways that you can participate. And, for women who are looking to get involved who may not want to go on an entrepreneurial journey personally, I mean, this is how these companies are surviving.
yeah.
And someone like me, that's how I am surviving. So I think you can very much go on an entrepreneurial journey with somebody who will be a very grateful recipient of your capital, and make outsized returns. Like you've probably heard this too, but like female CEOs are much more successful on average than male CEOs. And like businesses targeted at women where there is a lot of white space are likely, if you found a good problem space, you're going to be more successful because there's just nobody else knew that you wanted to have 4 different white shirts. They thought you just
Right.
wanted one.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, I use Armoire. And so like as someone who uses it, I always think of it, just I'm on the consumer side of it. And I'm like, well, it's so convenient. It's so easy. Like I started it because I had an event and I was like, every time I've ever bought an event dress, I've worn it twice and never worn it again. And they're like a higher end investment. And I was like, why don't I just borrow it for the same price and then I can try on a bunch? And like there's like this piece of me that's so fun when it arrives in my door and I get to try on a bunch of clothes. And if I don't like some of them, I just send them back. And it's
Yeah.
amazing. Like it's sort of like there's something to the simplicity of it. I had a friend who had like a last minute event and I was like, you should really rent because it'll be so much easier because you don't have to have that dress again. And like that's where I started, right? And then now I use
Yep.
them for other reasons, but I still really enjoy it. And I can understand, like, and for me too, as a consumer level, I'm like, well, I don't have to buy so many clothes. I can just have some new clothes and send them back. And it's so fun. But I can see how, like, from the perspective of someone else who doesn't like clothes or fashion or whatever, like you would just be like, this doesn't make any sense. But I think most of us are aware to some degree also like the impact of fashion and buying clothes. And we're trying to like reduce our consumerism and all of those pieces play into it. And it's all for the price of like buying one pair of jeans. And so you're like, this is fine. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, one of my kind of second life is that I really want to lobby for trash to actually. We should internalize the true cost of garbage at
Mm,
the consumer level and at the business level. I think we would all change our behavior so dramatically. And what
yeah.
I mean by that is like, you, I get it. Like when, especially like I talk to younger consumers and they're like, yeah, but I can get the like $3 thing from Shein that looks almost like this. You can, and then you can throw it in your garbage and you don't have to think about the fact that like the cost of the planet of you throwing that thing in your garbage is so heavy. So I think that I have a second lobby life about
Yeah. Around
making
that.
everyone pay for their trash in an expensive way that hurts.
Yeah. So that they aren't using so much stuff. Yeah. That's so
And,
fascinating.
with food packaging, I
Oh my
never
gosh.
think about like, oh, well, this one's like, well, I do now because just from, but like not from a monetary perspective. I don't think about the fact that like this food delivery is going to fill up my whole can of trash because like, oh, well, somebody else picks it up, somebody
Right.
deals with it.
Right. It's so true. No, I am with you on all of that stuff. And it's like, how can we reduce? And it takes so much thoughtfulness because everyone's made it so easy for us to consume. And sometimes I try to add friction to it. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to unsubscribe from that thing so that it's harder for me to
Yeah.
get stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to make it a little harder because I don't really need any of those things that fast
Right. Right.
or
Yeah.
even at all.
Totally. But it is kind of like it's interesting that you're making this values-based decision where I think we both are there's true economic cost that you're not internalizing because we've pushed those off into the third world where who's holding our garbage or wherever else
Totally.
it is, or even like more kind of like poorer communities in our own country. It's like that's where all the garbage goes. And it's like, well, out of sight, out of mind.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. What would you say now though then? So you're like into almost 10 years. You're 9 years, 10 years in. Like, do you just feel like clear? You're like, this is it. I'm on this track. Or do you feel like this is what I'm doing for now and I really love my company? Or is it something else entirely?
I still feel like she's like a young adult.
Mm.
She still needs some help. So I feel like I haven't made it yet, but I am starting to see that she's on her way.
Yeah.
So I guess like I feel like um, there's like a few more things that we kind of and when I say that to make that more real, like it's still the financial situation is still tenuous. Like
Mm.
I need to turn some dials still to make sure that it is comfortably and sort of like in the long run going to be a good investment where I mean a key thing is like we are not yet paying market salaries even across the
Mm.
whole employee base. So I've got to figure out a way for us to be make more money so that I can do right by my employees. And really, my goal is to be a better than average paymaster. I think Netflix has done a great job of this, where it's like you pay better than everybody else, and you expect a lot, but it's a high reward high expectation environment. And I would love to get to that because right now I feel like it's just a high expectation environment.
But you guys just won an award for workplace.
We did. And it was
Yeah.
like talk about like things that I am proud of.
Yeah.
This might be the thing that from an external validation perspective that I'm the most proud of, even more than, and it was kind of a surprise to me too, that it felt so clarifying that even, I'm so proud of the fact that now, we've made millions and millions and millions of dollars of revenue, and we've touched thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of people. And all of that like means so much to me. But this like felt different. I
Well, you
really want
tell.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll tell everyone what happened. What'd you guys get?
Yeah. So we got the Workplace of the Year award given to a company that has created a great place to work. And it's voted on by the community, hopefully by your employees, but also like, the community around. And I think the number I heard was that 20,000 people voted this
Oh,
year.
wow. Yeah.
So, and I also didn't realize it was that big because then
Yeah.
it kind of feels like maybe a little bit more than a popularity contest too, where it's like people are really um, they're aware of something about Armoire, and they think the branding, and yeah, that just felt so important to me that we'll leave behind these legacies of like hopefully doing something for the planet. We'll have added great value to our customers, and people will have been happy. The people who feel it the most, our employees who show up every day, they'll
Mhm.
have derived some value from this workplace. That feels so important to me.
Yeah, that's amazing. She didn't mention it's from Geekwire, so it's like a really big it's a big award. Like, you didn't expect like, you went to that thing and you didn't think that you were gonna be the one who's gonna get it.
Honestly, I'm usually like much more prepared. I was
You
very
were
unprepared because I really just didn't think there was any chance. Like there were very big names in our competitive set. I was already very honored to have been um, nominated, and I
Mhm.
thought I'll just have a couple glasses of wine, leave it at that.
Yeah, totally.
And when they were like Armar, I was like, oh
Now I
boy.
have to go up and talk. Yes.
But I said it almost, something to the effect of that um, this last 30 seconds has been like very clarifying for me because I feel like if at the end, the thing I will have been most proud of is like, the people who are closest to me, did I add value to their lives? And feels like at least this award is telling me that I have.
Mhm. Yeah, as you talk about that too, like, I'm just also envisioning like the pathway we all have in terms of like worth and value, because it's not like you felt worthy of that award before it showed up, right? And in
Right.
that moment, you kind of had to step up and be like, okay, like, we get to receive this award. And how do you kind of view that for yourself, like that journey? Because I feel like probably being a CEO of a company like this has pushed you to do stuff like that pretty frequently.
Yeah, it's a great question. Like, so if I rephrase that, is it kind of like how do I how do I not be so shocked when we get that award? Like, how do I know
Maybe.
that we are great before that?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, how do we know we're great, or when you're kind of pushed into greatness, because I think of things like that almost as like it pushes you into it. And so then you have to be like, oh, I guess it's better than I've been giving myself credit for. And then what do you do in those moments?
I guess like that is a great question, and I have been sitting with the fact that when we started this by saying I am like pretty hard on myself, and that is like a thing that I've been reminding myself of is like, hey, like, sure, they're all the ducks are not going the way you wanted the ducks to go, but like a very important duck seems to be in the right place.
Yeah.
So maybe give yourself a little bit of a break and realize that like a thing that matters to you so much seems to have come true. So I guess like the way I'm sitting with it is more from like a confidence and like reassurance to myself perspective.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I love what you're sharing too, because I think a lot of the women who come to me, they're like, they struggle with confidence, or they struggle with, being visible. And like, you're in a job that's very visible, right? Just being a CEO naturally. And then they're always like, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, there's like obviously some tips and tricks, but sometimes it's like when you just keep pushing yourself into things that you don't know how to do is when you learn how to do it, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I'm now the one who won the award for Workplace of the Year. So now
Yes.
I'm like, now that's me, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
adopting that for yourself.
And like on the downside too, I think I give myself a lot of negative self-talk, and I'm sure some of your customers do too. It's like you, I think, need to like find a way to put together the positive signals too, and like give them back to yourself in a
Yeah.
way that feels productive and real. I see this with a difference in, again, like broad generalizations, but sometimes like managing women versus managing men. I feel
Mm.
like my job with a lot of the women that that work for me is much more to be their reminder of like all the great things that they've done, and like all the balls that they've moved forward, and the people that they have coached, and just like all the positive value, because I already know before they showed up there one-on-one, they already gave themselves like a spanking for all the things that they didn't do well this week.
Yeah.
Whereas like sometimes, yeah, I don't get that same energy, and then it's much more about kind of accountability. And but yeah, and that's why I hesitate with some of these things, like in terms of the fact that like um, I feel like one of the unlocks a friend who kind of acts as like a mentor and coach to me gave me was that you can't have your personality be one way and just lose all the downsides. Like
Mm.
if you, but me, like if you're so gritty and like out there at the end, I'm like a cockroach, I will be the last one standing. You also can't beat yourself up for the fact that you're not that easy on yourself. Like
Mm.
we should work on you being easier on yourself, but don't expect that the yin and the yang don't sit together. If you're like another like personality problem that I have, that is also, as like, I take on a lot of stuff. Like I believe that it can all be solved. Um, it's like a great professional trait of mine, but it is painful. And like, I would like to not take on so many things, but I think just recognizing that like as I take on less things, I also will reduce this like upside thing. So I guess I'm
Mm.
trying to live in that like yin and yang a little bit more. And like Eastern philosophy teaches us this like all over the place. Like all of the Eastern religions sit in these like dichotomies of positive and negative, of good and bad. And that's like where you derive your balance and your peace, is in that place in the middle. So I'm kind of like trying to figure out what my right path is there too.
Yeah, I love how you explained that. I think it's important for people to hear it because sometimes, like you said, we're hard on ourselves for things that are actually really great qualities in a lot of ways, and we just have to learn to like take it down. I always think of like hard work, it's like one, like I have that, and then I'm like, okay, like, well, it's cool to work hard. It's just not at the expense of everything. So then, how do I do it that way and make it work for me?
Right.
Or like I think about too, like I'm a really fast action taker for better or worse, right? And so sometimes I just like dive into things and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I should be doing this one. And then
Right.
I have to just like scale back. But it's also like what makes me great at some of the things that I do. And so we all
Right.
have to, right? We all have those traits. And then
I
you're
think that's such a good example, because like
right.
if you weren't that person, sure, maybe you would be like more thoughtful before you start something, but then you're going to lose this like whole part of you that is really great.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, how do you temper it to a place where it's sustainable and gives you energy? And
Yeah. Yeah. But I loved your examples too, because being gritty, like I'm also a really resilient person, but it's also hard. Sometimes, like when you're resilient, sometimes life throws you really hard things. And then you have to be resilient in the face of things you don't really want to be resilient about. And then you're just like, well, I am resilient though, so I can do that. Like I can bounce back, like in developing, yeah, and just developing different parts of ourselves. But I liked how you explained it, that yin and that yang, those dualities.
yeah.
Well, Amika, this is such a. I just love talking to you because I feel like you just have such a interesting perspective, and then also what you've built is so cool and powerful. And I also know for myself, like I love being a customer of
Thank
Armoire. It's
you.
like so fun for me, but also just seeing what you guys are doing all the time, especially in Seattle, because you're always having events and like encouraging people to engage, which I think is amazing and so fun.
Thank
And
you.
yeah,
That it has been amazing to see the community come together. I feel very grateful to be a part of it.
yeah, it's so good. Well, are you ready for a few fast action questions?
I am.
Speaking of, okay,
I am.
they're really easy, but they're fun. Okay, what is the last thing you watched on television?
The Last of Us
The
last
Last
night.
of Us. Oh, was it good?
I am, it's a little like too close to home for me. Do you know what the show is like about?
No, I
Oh,
haven't
it's
watched.
about like humans who survive a plague of
Oh,
some
okay.
sort, and then it's like kind of like what happens afterwards. So I wouldn't say that I'm loving it.
Okay.
It's like so dark. It's so dark.
Have you read Station 11? It's like,
It's similar to
is it
that.
like that? Yeah, that book was so good, but then I was also like, I feel a little down after reading it because it's so
Did you
intense.
watch the show?
No, I didn't watch the show.
I think they did an incredible job, but it really the actors are amazing across the board. But yes, I still think about it
I mean, like,
years
I would
later.
turn the page and be like, "I don't know what's gonna happen,"
I
you know, because it
know,
would because it felt stressful. But at the
very
same
similar.
time yeah, but at the same time, so good. Okay, well, good to
Yeah,
know. I'll file that one away.
yeah.
Okay, what is on your nightstand?
What is on my nightstand? This is so funny. I can like picture it right now. There is like two Paw Patrol action figures that came in this morning,
Yes.
um, and a pair of like sunglasses so one kid was wearing the sunglasses and carrying the Paw Patrol guys, so they're still down there. There is um, a book called The Second 50, which is like a fascinating book. But the one line that I'll say is like, we're only one or two generations into people predictably living past the age of 50.
Oh,
So it's like not that
that's
weird
interesting.
that we
Yeah.
don't know what to do in our an older age, because like as humans, nobody knows what to do. So it's a really fascinating look at just kind of like aging. And I found it to be really peace giving, because if you're feeling lost about what you're going to do in the back half of your life, it's because it's new for everybody.
That is cool. I would love to read a book like that. That's so interesting.
And then the last thing is there's a brochure from a travel company, and that's like my version of like just daydreaming off
Of
of
what's
it.
next.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you could go anywhere. You could pick up and go anywhere just like you did before.
totally,
I
totally.
love it. Awesome. Okay, the next question is when was the last time you tried something new and what was it?
Oh, that is a great question. Um, Well, I've been doing some cooking, which is, like, kind of unusual for me because I live with a master chef,
Mm.
who he has been feeding me now for many years, and I'm daughter of another master chef, so I've basically been fed for a long time,
Yeah.
but now it's kind of with my kids, I'm learning to do a little bit of cooking here and there, so, we made scones the
Oh,
other day,
fun. Yeah.
and I liked it. They were less impressed, that enjoyed the, like, cooking process, and then only mommy is eating the scones at the end. I was like, "Uh-oh, this probably isn't how this was supposed to work itself out." But then we did like a mango granola parfait thingy that had much more sugar and probably more interest as a result.
That's fun. I love it. Cooking is such a fun exploration. So fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and the last one is what are the top 3 most used emojis for you?
Oh, that's so funny. I love these questions. Um, so there's the one with like the watery eyes, which says like a teary thank you to me. I feel like so I cry a lot. I cry like all the time, positive and negative.
Uh-huh.
So I feel like that grateful face is like very emblematic of like if I was with the person, I'd probably be crying. And
Yeah.
so here's my happy, grateful, crying face. Um, and then, I use the prayer hands probably, like, in similar, thing, and then I really like the cartwheeling lady.
Oh, yes, she is really fun.
I find that 5 times a day I'm cartwheeling around
Cartwheeling.
something.
That's I really like hearing people's emojis on this. Like, maybe it was one of my very earliest ones. Someone told me about the face melting emoji, and I didn't even realize at the time, like, that was, like, an option, and then since then, I, like to use that one a lot
That is
because I
a
feel like
great one.
it's very expressive, but I feel like the cartwheeling I mean, I knew about the cartwheeling one, but I don't use it a lot, but I was like, "Oh, that could be a really fun." Yeah, because it just, like, has, like, a pop of energy and fun, right?
Yeah, try getting it into your rotation.
Yeah, I
What
really
are your 3 most used right now?
I know my 3 I mean, I definitely am always like a laughing emoji is like constant in there. And then I feel like I go through phases of like when I'm using something more or not. And but I feel like I use like the little like the glitter sparkle ones a lot.
I like that
The
one.
glitter
Yeah.
sparkles. And then I like rotate through different hearts for different purposes. Like I was into the beating heart for a while,
Mm,
and then sometimes the double swirl hearts. But yeah, those are most of them, I feel like. But but I'm a frequent like search through emoji user.
mm.
So I'm not like always on the same 3. I'm always like rotating.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. But it is really
Great
fun. I'm always
question.
like, yeah, I'm always curious about.
I'm gonna steal that. That's such a good icebreaker.
Yeah, it's just like, what are your top 3 emojis? And then people have to think about it. And then you learn a lot about like how their brain works from
So
their
cool.
emojis. Yeah. Well, thank you, Amika, so much for coming on. We're going to link everything for Armoire below so you guys can check it out. I highly recommend it. It's just such a fun way to just like liven up your wardrobe and then just feel really good about how you're doing it. And, just such a powerful conversation. So thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for making this happen. It was a blast. Best part of my day. So loved it. Take care.
Thank you.